Alright, so here's a big pot of boiling water, and I'm about to put 2 whole chickens in. And we bring it up to a boil after the chickens are put in, and I let it boil for about half an hour, and then I turn the heat off. And the heat inside the pot itself continues to cook the chicken. And when the chicken is cool enough, just barely cool enough to debone, we take the chicken out and we debone it. And then what I do is I take all of the liquid and I boil it and let the water evaporate until I have a nice thick broth. And I use that to pour over my chicken, and then I can it. So this is the boiling water, and this is one that's already cooked. I'm letting it cool down. There's 2 chickens in there. I will skim some of the chicken fat off because I don't like to have too much fat in my jars. I like some, but not a lot. So in a little bit I'll show you what we do for the next step. Okay, so we just put our 2 chickens in here, and one of the problems when you have one chicken on top of the bottom chicken is the bottom chicken will scorch or burn on the very bottom because all the weight is on there. So I always try and get them to go either this way or the other way. So both of them are side by side like this. And that way you don't have that scorching problem. And then halfway through I will flip them so the feet will be up and the necks will be down. So this is my second pot that I was showing you how to cook the chicken. I did flip them upside down halfway through. You can actually see that the water is bubbling and boiling right through the chicken itself, so you know it's getting cooked inside and out. And it is ready to go, so you can see it just falls right off. Absolutely perfect. So I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm just going to let it sit here and cool. And this one over here is now ready. It's actually cool enough, almost cool enough, to where we can start to debone it. And we take all the skin off. We take only the bone. I don't use all of the meat. I leave all the bone, and then I boil it for a little bit longer. Then I scoop all the bones out, and then I keep boiling the liquid until it gets very condensed. So I'll show you all the process of that as well. Here's the 4 chickens that I boiled, and I was able to scoop most of them out whole. It doesn't really matter if they fall apart, and you pick it out in chunks. So we're letting these cool, and then we will debone them. The bones go back into the chicken broth, which I have a very, very full 5-gallon pot of chicken broth simmering and reducing down. I want it to be less than half, so it's very concentrated, and that's what I pour over the chicken when I put the meat in the jar. So we'll be doing that probably tomorrow. We'll debone it tonight, put it in the fridge, and I'll jar it up tomorrow. So here's my 5-gallon pot of chicken broth. I boiled 4 chickens in this. I condensed it into 1 pot. I had 2 pots of chickens. Now I'm down to just the 1 pot. I'm going to boil it for probably a couple hours. I want it reduced by at least half, if not more, and then I'll turn it off. What I'm aiming for is a liquid that goes over the pieces of chicken in the jar, but as it cools after being processed in the canner, it actually gels. So you have a very thick, concentrated chicken broth that is really good for soups or casseroles or gravy or anything you want to use it for. So I'll show you that next. So I've been boiling this for a couple hours, and you can see where the line was at the top when I started and what it's like now and how concentrated it is. It's a beautiful deep amber color. There's fat floating on the top. At this point I need to pour it into a strainer so I can get the solids out. And what I have here is a new clean smaller pot, and then I have a larger colander that I'm putting in a strainer because this one is too small. So I use my strainers like this, and I'll pour directly into this, and it'll go straight through. This will catch all the small bits. So I'll do that right now. And there we go. And this all has the fat on the top at this point, and I will use this right now to fill my, how many do I have? 12 jars of chicken that I cooked, and that was 4 whole chickens that we deboned, and it's filled 12 jars. So, and each jar, it's a pint jar, each jar is 1 pound of meat. So I'll do that in just a minute. Alright, so my broth is still pretty hot and there's a lot of chicken fat on top. I don't like to use a lot of chicken fat in my canned products. So what I'm going to do is add some ice to it and help it coagulate up on the top so I can skim it off. So inside goes the ice. This is from my ice maker. And we'll just, okay. So now we'll just let it sit for a minute and it should start to get cold. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm going to skim off the top. So this is after I removed most of the fat. There's still some in there. And this is pure fat all the way down to the bottom. So this is a lot of fat that would have ended up in my jars. And I know some people like to can with the fat. That's fine. I personally prefer not to. I feel it's safer not to have this much fat in your jars. And there's still enough in the broth itself to where you get that richness. So the next thing to do is just to fill up my jars. I have my my cooked chicken in here. Like I said, this is 4 whole cooked chickens right here. 12 jars worth. Each one of these jars, it's a pint, is 1 pound of meat. So if you're following a recipe, it's very easy to figure out how much meat is there. A quart holds 2 pounds. So all I'm going to do is get my broth and very slowly pour it in. See if I can show you. So it doesn't bubble up and over. If you pour too much in at once, it has a tendency to overflow. This one may need a little help with a spoon or a fork in there. I use the straight end, not the serrated edge. And I'll just go wiggle. And yes, you can use your little plastic bubbler, but I don't like those. And I've had them break on me in the middle of a jar, so I just use the table knife. It works just as well. I'm not too worried about causing grooves in the glass. I'm very careful. I know that's a problem, so I don't go there with my meat. Okay, next jar. And again, I fill it up to this first bump. So out of 4 whole chickens, I ended up with 12 jars of cooked chicken that I canned in its own broth. It's packed nicely. This is 1 pound of chicken. I ended up with 3 quarts and 1.5 pints. So 3/4 of a quart. This is really rich. You can see there's fat on the top, even though I skimmed off a lot of it. There's still fat on here. There's solids in the bottom. They kick up.